390 billion trees, 10% of all life on Earth. And yet, we know less about this place than we do about the surface of Mars. Hidden beneath a canopy so thick it blocks even satellites, the Amazon has guarded its secrets for millennia. For centuries it was seen as an untouched wilderness, a green void, a place too wild, too infertile, too remote for civilization. But in just the last few years, that story has changed. Using advanced LiDAR technology, laser scans that cut through the trees, archaeologists have begun mapping what no eye has seen in centuries: lost roads, giant ceremonial platforms, entire cities built by civilizations that science said couldn't exist here. And that's just the beginning, because beyond these ruins, something else is emerging. Strange creatures, impossible ecosystems, and tribes still hidden from the modern world. In the Amazon, mystery isn't rare, it's constant. So what if the last great frontier on Earth isn't the depths of the ocean or the surface of another planet, but the rainforest we thought we already knew? This is the unseen Amazon. At over 4,300 miles long, the Amazon River is one of Earth's great natural arteries, rivaling the Nile in length, but unmatched in volume. Each second, the river discharges over 209,000 cubic metres of freshwater into the Atlantic. That's more than the next 7 largest rivers combined. But the Amazon is more than just a river. It is a climate engine, a transport highway, and in many ways the spine of the rainforest itself. Long before asphalt and aviation, the Amazon River was the region's first and only true thoroughfare. Even today, no bridge crosses its main stem. From the Atlantic coast to the heart of Peru, this waterway is the primary route for people, goods, and even floating gas stations. Not cars. Towns like Manaus and Iquitos, some of the most isolated large cities in the world, depend entirely on this river for survival. Why? Because the Amazon basin is so vast and impenetrable that roads are almost useless. Forest density, unstable soils, and a near daily cycle of torrential rain have made infrastructure nearly impossible. For most of its length, the Amazon River remains humanity's only access route into the jungle's depths. What's more astonishing is that the Amazon wasn't always an eastward flowing river. Around 10 million years ago, the Andes Mountains rose rapidly to the west, reversing the river's course. It once drained westward into the Pacific. Now it carves its way across an entire continent toward the Atlantic. This reversal created one of the largest drainage basins in the world, a basin that supplies nearly 1/5 of all freshwater flowing into Earth's oceans. Perhaps the most misunderstood feature of the river is how it participates in creating its own weather. Through transpiration, the billions of trees in the Amazon emit vast quantities of water vapour. Combined with evaporation from rivers and lakes, this vapour rises into the sky, cools, and returns as rain. It's a self-sustaining loop. Scientists estimate that up to 50% of the Amazon's rainfall is generated by the forest itself. Without the river feeding the forest, and the forest feeding the sky, the entire climate system could collapse. Worse still, this system has global consequences. The Amazon's influence stretches far beyond South America. The vapour plumes it produces help regulate rainfall across the Americas and even impact the North Atlantic Oscillation. a major climate system affecting Europe and West Africa. Near Manaus, a visual phenomenon illustrates the complexity of the Amazon system. Here, two rivers, the Rio Negro and the Rio Solimões, meet but do not mix for nearly 6 miles. One is dark, slow and acidic. The other is sandy, warm and fast. Their distinct properties prevent them from blending immediately. To indigenous communities and early European explorers alike, this natural wonder felt like a metaphor for the Amazon itself. A place where opposing forces meet, coexist, and yet remain inexplicably separate. But the river's true mystery lies not just in what it carries, but what lies beneath. During the rainy season, the Amazon swells. At its peak, the river floods more than 100,000 square miles of surrounding forest. Known as the várzea, seasonally flooded forest, this amphibious environment is one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth. Fish swim among trees. Dolphins navigate beneath fruit-bearing branches. Even trees themselves have evolved to survive weeks of full submersion. In some regions, the floodwaters rise over 30 feet, turning jungle paths into rivers and villages into floating settlements. And then just as suddenly, the waters recede, leaving behind nutrient-rich sediment, freshly deposited seeds, and a rebirth of life. With more than 2,200 known species of fish, the Amazon River is the most biodiverse freshwater system on Earth. And that's just what we've found so far. Recent discoveries include the pirarucu, a giant air-breathing fish that can grow up to 15 feet long. The Arapaima gigas, which uses a primitive lung to survive oxygen-depleted waters. The blind catfish, a species found in submerged caves with no eyes and blood-red skin. New species are discovered every year, and many are believed to still hide beneath the water, in areas where no scientific teams have yet ventured. But for all its power and scale, the river is only the surface, because beyond its banks lies something even more baffling. A forest so dense that it hides entire ancient civilizations, uncontacted tribes, and creatures with adaptations found nowhere else on Earth. What else is hidden beneath the canopy? From the ground, the Amazon seems like a wall of green, impenetrable, infinite. But the truth is, most of the life here never even touches the ground. Instead, it lives above it, in a layered kingdom, suspended across the treetops. This is the canopy. And it's not just a roof, it's an entire vertical city of life. The Amazon rainforest is organised like a natural skyscraper. Each layer is a neighbourhood of its own. The emergent layer, the tallest trees, up to 200 feet high, exposed to wind and sun. The canopy, a dense ceiling of intertwined branches and leaves, capturing 95% of sunlight. The understory, a dark, humid world filled with mosses, snakes, frogs and shadows. And finally the forest floor, mostly bare because barely any light reaches it. But it's the canopy that supports the most dynamic and dangerous ecosystem on Earth. To survive here is to leap, climb, glide or soar. Spider monkeys, with their powerful limbs and prehensile tails, can clear 40-foot gaps between trees. Squirrel monkeys form troops of hundreds, navigating the branches with astonishing speed. And then there's the margay, a small elusive wildcat with a gymnast's grace. It's the only feline on Earth known to rotate its hind ankles 180 degrees, allowing it to climb headfirst down trees like a squirrel. It mimics the cries of baby monkeys to lure prey. Each adaptation is an evolutionary response to life in a world where falling means death. Then there's the sloth, slow, silent, seemingly unsuited for survival here. But its lethargy is its strength. By moving just 41 yards per day on average, the sloth conserves precious energy. It survives on toxic leaves few other creatures dare to eat, which it digests over weeks in a complex fermentation-based stomach. It comes down from the trees only once per week to defecate, a ritual still not fully understood by scientists. Its fur even grows symbiotic algae, turning its body into living camouflage. Sloths are so slow-moving that they become mini ecosystems, home to moths, fungi, and green flora. Above the sloth's world, colour dominates. Toucans with bills almost the length of their bodies perch on high branches. These bills aren't just beautiful, they regulate temperature, allowing the toucan to radiate excess heat in the sweltering canopy. Nearby scarlet macaws soar overhead, some of the most intelligent birds on Earth. Mated pairs stay together for life, grooming each other and raising chicks in hollow trees. They learn from one another, imitate calls, and display distinct group dialects, what some scientists now call avian culture. But beauty here always walks alongside danger. Enter the harpy eagle. With a 7-foot wingspan and talons the size of a grizzly bear's claw, this is the Amazon's aerial apex predator. It doesn't fly above the trees, it weaves through them. Unlike wide-winged birds of the plains, the harpy has compact, powerful wings and a massive chest, built for maneuverability. It can pick off prey as large as monkeys and sloths, pulling them straight from the canopy with explosive force. Yet even the harpy must tread carefully. Its chick stays in the nest for over 5 months, completely dependent. In that time, both parents must continuously supply food and even bring fresh branches to deter insect infestations. One mistake, and the next generation doesn't survive. While creatures hunt, feed, and reproduce, another war wages quietly: chemical warfare between plants and their predators. Many Amazonian trees have evolved to produce alkaloids, tannins, and other toxins in their leaves. Natural insecticides and herbivore deterrents, these toxic cocktails make much of the greenery inedible, even deadly to most creatures. But evolution finds workarounds. Leafcutter ants harvest these toxic leaves not to eat, but to feed their underground fungus gardens. The ants don't consume the foliage directly. Instead, they culture a specific fungus that breaks down the leaf matter, and they eat the fungus. This relationship is so complex that the fungus produces chemical signals to tell the ants when a particular leaf is too toxic. The ants respond by shifting to a new species of plant. They are not foragers, they are farmers, and this fungal symbiosis has lasted for 50 million years. All this activity, the climbing, gliding, hunting and feeding, drives more than just life. It drives global carbon cycling. The Amazon canopy stores over 100 billion metric tons of carbon. Trees inhale CO2, exhale oxygen, and lock carbon away in roots, bark, and leaves. When canopy trees fall, they release these gases, but also open light gaps, allowing new generations of plants to rise. This cycle is not random. It's engineered by life forms, from the jaguar to the insect to the vine. But while the canopy dazzles with colour and movement, the real mystery lies not above, but beneath. Because only now, using airborne laser mapping and satellite archaeology, are scientists beginning to discover what's been hiding below the treetops for centuries. Something no explorer ever imagined would exist here. We've long imagined the Amazon as a place untouched, an endless, primeval forest, too wild, too unforgiving, for civilization to take root. But that image was wrong. Because beneath the green waves of trees, archaeologists are now uncovering the ruins of something stunning. Entire lost cities, built by civilizations that flourished long before Columbus ever crossed the Atlantic. They were hidden not because they were small, but because the rainforest itself grew over them. For centuries, explorers chased stories of a city hidden in the jungle, a place of wealth, pyramids, and knowledge. British explorer Percy Fawcett called it the lost city of Z. He vanished trying to find it in 1925. Mainstream scholars dismissed the idea. The Amazon's soil was too poor, they said. The region could never support agriculture at the scale needed for cities. Its scattered tribes were the only people who had ever lived here, they believed. In small numbers, as hunter-gatherers, that view held for decades, but it was wrong. Beginning in the 1990s and accelerating dramatically in the 2020s, new technology began to rewrite the Amazon story. Using LiDAR, light detection and ranging, scientists fly over the forest, scanning the canopy with laser pulses. The beams penetrate the trees and reflect off the forest floor, revealing invisible structures hidden beneath the foliage. What they've found is astonishing. In Bolivia, in a region called the Llanos de Mojos, LiDAR revealed massive circular settlements laid out with pyramids, plazas, and defensive earthworks. In Ecuador's Upano Valley, researchers uncovered over 6,000 residential platforms, roads, canals, and ceremonial centres, suggesting organised, complex urban design dating back over 2,500 years. Across Brazil's Xingu region, dozens of large villages were found connected by roads and bridges, forming networks that spanned hundreds of miles. These weren't jungle clearings. These were cities. Purpose-built, engineered and inhabited by tens of thousands of people. Possibly more. One region alone is now believed to have supported over 1 million people prior to European contact. Perhaps the most mind-blowing piece of this puzzle is hidden not in ruins, but in the soil itself. The Amazon's dirt is notoriously poor in nutrients. One reason archaeologists assumed cities couldn't exist here. But scattered throughout the basin, scientists began to find patches of deep black soil, different from anything else in the region. This is terra preta, dark earth in Portuguese. It's man-made, formed by mixing charcoal, fish bones, broken pottery, and compost into infertile dirt. Terra preta can retain nutrients for thousands of years. It's an ancient agricultural breakthrough, and it wasn't an accident. The people who created terra preta engineered fertile zones across the rainforest, transforming the Amazon from wilderness into a managed landscape. They weren't simply surviving the forest, they were shaping it. So what happened? Why did these civilizations vanish? The answer is as tragic as it is familiar. Disease and conquest. When Europeans arrived in the 1500s, they brought with them smallpox, measles, and other pathogens. The indigenous people of the Amazon had no immunity. Within decades, entire societies were wiped out, often before they were ever seen. By the time explorers returned centuries later, the cities had vanished under vines and trees. The survivors had fled deep into the jungle, forming smaller nomadic communities to escape the devastation. The jungle didn't destroy these civilizations, it preserved them. Even today, only a tiny fraction of the Amazon has been scanned with LiDAR. Scientists believe there could be dozens, even hundreds. More undiscovered urban centres, still hidden under the canopy. These sites could change everything we know about ancient South America. They suggest that the Amazon once held engineered landscapes the size of small European nations, that it hosted not just tribes, but nations. With trade, agriculture, and monumental architecture. They hint at a vision of the Amazon not as a wilderness, but as a continent-spanning civilization. Interrupted by catastrophe and buried beneath trees. But as revealing as these ruins are, the Amazon is not a museum. It's still alive. The rainforest isn't just hiding the ghosts of cities. It's home to the strangest, most extreme wildlife on Earth. Because in the shadows beneath the canopy, evolution has taken some of its wildest turns. From frogs with see-through skin to predators that mimic baby monkeys to lure prey. And the deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Deep beneath the rainforest canopy, light fades. The ground is shadowed in green, and the deeper you go, the stranger the creatures become. The Amazon is evolution turned loose, a place where camouflage, mimicry, venom, transparency and symbiosis aren't exotic adaptations, they're survival basics. This is not a forest of familiar animals. This is the theatre of the bizarre. Among the many butterflies that flutter through the forest, one disappears entirely. The glass-winged butterfly, Greta Otto, looks like it belongs to a dream. Its wings are nearly invisible, not due to pigment, but to a microscopic structure that bends and scatters light. This adaptation renders it effectively invisible to predators, floating like a ghost between leaves. It's not just camouflage, it's evolutionary invisibility. And in a forest full of hunters, that's priceless. Predators here aren't just fast, they're clever. The margay, a small Amazonian wildcat, looks like a miniature leopard, but this agile feline can rotate its ankles 180 degrees, allowing it to climb trees head first and live almost entirely in the canopy. But what sets the margay apart isn't agility, it's deception. In one rare observed hunt, a margay was seen mimicking the call of a baby monkey, luring adult monkeys close, expecting to find an abandoned infant. Instead, they found death. Here, even cries for help can be a trap. Hidden among the leaves, the glass frog defies logic. Its belly is translucent. You can literally see its organs beating inside, including its tiny heart. But the transparency isn't constant. When the frog sleeps, it redirects its blood into the liver, boosting its invisibility by over 60%. It's not magic, it's biology refined over millions of years to a science fiction outcome, an animal that fades when threatened. On the forest floor, a tiny insect delivers pain unlike anything else on Earth. The bullet ant gets its name from its sting, which victims compare to being shot. The pain ranks at the very top of the Schmidt pain index, lasting for hours and described as pure, intense, brilliant pain. Like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch nail in your heel. These ants aren't just aggressive defenders, they're also part of coming-of-age rituals in some Amazonian tribes. Boys must insert their hands into gloves filled with bullet ants and endure the stings without flinching. Not once, but 20 times, across several months. Pain is part of tradition. In the Amazon, even insects write culture. In a forest where many animals can't be seen, the owl butterfly thrives by being both loud-looking and silent listening. It wears 2 giant false eyes on its wings, scaring birds into second-guessing an attack. But the real trick, it can hear birds coming. With ears located on its wings, they're called vocal organs. Delicate structures that allow the butterfly to hear ultrasonic bird calls. It doesn't just look like it's watching, it's actually listening. Perched high on a branch is one of the most flamboyant birds in the Amazon. The Guianan cock of the rock. With a bright orange crest and a circle of females watching below, the males perform one of the most elaborate mating dances in the bird world. But after the show, the female is left completely alone to raise the young. In the Amazon, beauty is often a solo performance. Among the swamps and flooded plains stalks the scarlet ibis, its red feathers blazing like fire against the green. The colour doesn't come from birth, it comes from its food. A diet rich in crustaceans full of carotenoids gradually turns its feathers crimson. And it's not just stunning. The scarlet ibis is a living fossil. Fossils identical to modern ibis have been found dating back over 60 million years. Meaning this exact bird once soared over the heads of dinosaurs. Not all dinosaurs are extinct. Resting silently on a branch is a small green snake with strange protrusions above its eyes. They look like eyelashes, but they're not for beauty. They're camouflage. The eyelash viper waits motionless for hours, blending into leaves. When prey moves past, it strikes with lightning speed, injecting hemotoxic venom that destroys tissue and disrupts blood flow. In the Amazon, death doesn't always come with a roar. Sometimes it whispers from a leaf. No list of strange creatures would be complete without the green anaconda, the heaviest snake on Earth. Growing up to 30 feet long and weighing over 500 pounds, it stalks swamps and rivers, mostly unseen. But despite its size, it's not venomous. Instead, the anaconda is a constrictor. It strikes fast, coils around prey, and squeezes until the lungs collapse and the heart stops. Its eyes and nostrils sit on top of its head, allowing it to lurk just below the surface, still silent and ready. It is the nightmare of anything that swims. These are just a handful of the Amazon's evolutionary marvels. The deeper you go, the more unbelievable it gets. Nature didn't just get creative here. It went wild. But in this rainforest of abundance, one question looms large. How can a place that creates so much also be at such risk of destruction? In the next section, we confront the paradox at the heart of the Amazon. Why the most life-giving ecosystem on Earth now faces a very real risk of collapse. The Amazon has survived ice ages, tectonic shifts, and species extinctions for over 50 million years, but it may not survive us. Despite being the largest rainforest on Earth and producing roughly 20% of the planet's oxygen, the Amazon today faces an accelerating crisis. Its vastness masks its fragility. Its beauty makes it harder to believe what's happening beneath the canopy. We don't just stand to lose species. We stand to lose the largest, most complex living system ever built by nature. One that regulates the global climate, recycles carbon, stores fresh water, and sustains life on Earth at planetary scale. Every single year, the Amazon loses forest cover equivalent to the size of New Jersey. That's over 3 million acres of ancient forest cut, burned, or cleared. And it's not happening randomly. The greatest damage occurs along what's called the arc of deforestation, a crescent-shaped belt sweeping across the southeastern edge of the Amazon basin. Particularly in Brazil, where agriculture, cattle grazing, and illegal logging operations are rapidly expanding. Farmers clear land using fire, a fast, cheap, and devastating method. What begins as a small burn often turns into an uncontrollable wildfire, igniting nearby forest and releasing billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. In 2019 alone, more than 75,000 fires were detected in the Amazon, the worst fire season in over a decade. Satellite images showed clouds of smoke stretching over 1,000 miles, blanketing cities, choking wildlife, and reducing biodiversity in hours. It's fire, not rain, that now defines the Amazon's fate. Above ground, trees fall. Below ground, the forest is being poisoned. In the pursuit of gold and rare earth metals, illegal mining operations scar the landscape with pits and chemicals. Mercury, used to extract gold, leaks into rivers, contaminating fish and bioaccumulating in wildlife. For indigenous communities downstream, the result is catastrophic. Poisoned water, poisoned food, poisoned blood. The Amazon's rivers, once its lifelines, become its veins of slow collapse. Development projects cut deep into the forest. Highways like Brazil's BR 163 and BR 319 don't just connect towns, they open new corridors of deforestation. Roads create edge zones where illegal loggers, hunters, and settlers quickly follow. A single road can increase deforestation by up to 600% within 10 kilometres of its route. The forest isn't just being felled, it's being fragmented, and fragmented forests become sick forests. The Amazon is one of the world's largest carbon sinks, storing over 90 billion tonnes of carbon in its trees and soil. But deforestation is flipping the equation. In some regions, the Amazon has already become a net carbon emitter, releasing more CO2 than it absorbs. This triggers a dangerous feedback loop. Less forest means less rainfall. Less rainfall means drier forests. Drier forests burn more easily. More burning releases more carbon. Eventually, this leads to a tipping point. A moment when the Amazon is no longer a rainforest at all. Climatologists estimate that if 20 to 25% of the forest is lost, the ecosystem may irreversibly shift into a dry savanna. So far, we've already lost at least 17%. We are nearing the edge of ecological collapse. Over 30 million people live in the Amazon, including around 400 indigenous groups, some of whom still live in voluntary isolation. For them, the rainforest is more than an ecosystem. It is a living ancestor, a provider, protector, and sacred force. But indigenous communities have become the frontline defenders of the forest. In areas legally protected by indigenous land rights, deforestation is up to 3 times lower than elsewhere. Yet they face constant threats: violence, land invasion, and political rollbacks of protections. In 2022, Indigenous activist and land defender Bruno Pereira was murdered alongside British journalist Dom Phillips while investigating illegal activity in the Brazilian Amazon. Their deaths became an international symbol of what's at stake. Protecting the Amazon isn't just an environmental issue, it's a human rights issue. The Amazon is not yet lost. There are signs of resilience, and new technologies are turning the tide. Satellite monitoring now detects illegal deforestation in real time. Ecotourism provides economic alternatives to logging and mining. REDD Plus initiatives offer financial incentives to preserve carbon sinks. And perhaps most importantly, Indigenous-led conservation efforts are expanding. In Ecuador, the Guarani people won a landmark legal battle in 2019, stopping oil drilling in 500,000 acres of their ancestral land. Their message to the world was simple: the forest is not for sale. More recently, advances in LiDAR mapping are allowing archaeologists to uncover the Amazon's buried history, revealing long-lost civilizations beneath the canopy and upending myths that the rainforest was always empty. With every discovery, the Amazon becomes more vital to understand and more urgent to protect. Because this isn't just a rainforest, it's a living archive, a global thermostat. A natural engine that sustains life far beyond its borders. From satellite photos to tribal wisdom, from ancient pyramids to floating frogs, the Amazon is a mystery in motion. But to preserve it, we must first see it clearly, in all its complexity, fragility, and wonder. And there's no better place to do that than at the meeting point of its past and future, where two rivers collide but never blend. At first glance, it looks like a trick of the light, a river sliced in half by an invisible hand, but what you're seeing is real. This is the Encontro das Aguas, the meeting of the waters, where the Rio Negro and the Amazon River collide in a spectacle of physics, chemistry, and visual awe. For nearly 4 miles, the two rivers flow side by side, one dark as black tea, the other pale and silty, like liquid clay. Without mixing, no barrier divides them, no dam or current wall, just two colossal bodies of water, side by side, utterly distinct. But why? The answer lies in a combination of speed, temperature, and density. The Rio Negro, originating from the Guiana Shield, carries warm, slow-moving water that's rich in dissolved organic material. This gives it its inky, almost opaque colour, a result of decomposing vegetation, like steeped leaf litter. In contrast, the Solimões River, the upper stretch of the Amazon, runs faster and cooler, carrying vast amounts of sediment eroded from the Andes Mountains, thousands of miles upstream. It's heavy with sand and minerals, making it lighter in colour and denser in texture. When these rivers meet near the Brazilian city of Manaus, the result is an optical clash that seems to defy logic. The Amazon, flowing at around 4 to 6 miles per hour, barrels through with cooler, sediment-laden waters, while the warmer, slower-moving Rio Negro lingers beside it at just 1.5 miles per hour. It can take over 6 miles before the temperature, velocity, and densities align enough for the waters to finally merge into one. But the phenomenon isn't just beautiful, it's ecologically significant. This frictional boundary creates an unusual, transitional habitat. Aquatic species must choose a side. Those adapted to blackwater thrive in the Rio Negro, while sediment-loving organisms dominate the Solimões. Between them, a narrow ribbon of turbulent water plays host to migratory fish, caimans, and rare dolphin species that exploit the convergence. One such species is the Inia geoffrensis, the Amazon river dolphin, also known as the boto. Unlike their oceanic cousins, botos are pink-skinned and blind, navigating murky waters using advanced sonar. Some local legends say they can transform into men at night to seduce humans, but science too finds them captivating. In these meeting zones, botos use the visibility contrast between the rivers to ambush prey, exploiting the hydrodynamic chaos that confuses fish. Further beneath the surface, a microbial battle is waged. Blackwater rivers like the Rio Negro are famously acidic and low in nutrients, while the Solimões is slightly alkaline and teeming with sediment-borne life. This chemical divergence limits bacterial crossover, creating invisible biochemical zones that define everything from decomposition rates to nutrient cycling. It's a powerful reminder the Amazon is not one ecosystem, but many. This single river system has more ecological diversity than some entire continents, and phenomena like the meeting of the waters show us how even water can carry identity, memory, and boundaries. In recent years, drone footage and satellite imaging have revealed even more dramatic views of this convergence. From above, the rivers appear as two titans locked in a slow-motion dance. NASA satellites can spot the line where they meet from hundreds of miles in orbit. In a sense, it's one of the only places on Earth where a river becomes visible from space without relying on land. Yet despite this grandeur, the phenomenon is delicate. Climate change is already shifting rainfall patterns across the basin. The Andes, source of the Solimois, are warming, potentially altering the volume and composition of the water flow. Meanwhile, deforestation in the Rio Negro watershed is reducing the amount of decaying vegetation that feeds the Blackwater stream. Some researchers worry the visual boundary between the rivers could blur in the coming decades, not because the laws of physics have changed, but because the rivers themselves are losing their contrast, like a story being forgotten. In indigenous cosmologies, rivers are living beings, ancestors, guides, and spirits. The meeting of the waters is not just a spectacle, but a dialogue. Two rivers with different origins, journeys, and characters. Meeting, not mixing, until nature says it's time. Even in a rainforest filled with giant trees and impossible animals, this silent river duel stands as one of the Amazon's most breathtaking wonders. It's a dividing line that reminds us how much of nature resists blending, and how powerful that resistance can be. But not everything in the Amazon reveals itself so easily. While the meeting of the waters dazzles with open contrast, light versus dark, fast versus slow, deeper in the forest, another duality plays out in shadows. Here you won't see spectacle. You'll sense it, because when the canopy closes in and the air grows still, something ancient begins to move. Not a river, not a myth, a predator. The jaguar doesn't just roam the rainforest, it rules it. And yet, in all its power, it remains almost invisible. A ghost with claws. Let's follow the paw prints. In the Amazon, everything leaves a trace. Broken branches, disturbed mud, a splash on the surface. But the jaguar moves through this world like smoke. Unseen, unheard, unmatched. The jaguar, Panthera onca, is the largest cat in the Americas, and the third largest in the world, behind only lions and tigers. But unlike its African and Asian cousins, the jaguar doesn't stalk open plains or grasslands. It rules the rainforest, a biome built on silence, ambush, and invisibility. Weighing up to 250 pounds, it's built for stealth and power. Its bite is the strongest of any big cat, capable of crushing turtle shells and piercing the skulls of prey with a single bite between the ears. Unlike other cats that kill by suffocation, the jaguar goes straight to the brain. Its preferred habitat, dense flooded forests, where its patterned coat disappears into dappled light and shadow. It swims rivers without hesitation, climbs trees in silence, and can strike prey before they know it's there. Ecologically, the jaguar is more than a hunter. It's a system regulator. By preying on herbivores like capybaras, peccaries, and caimans, jaguars help maintain the delicate balance between vegetation and grazing. Too few jaguars and plant diversity drops. Too many herbivores and riverbanks collapse from erosion. Studies have shown that jaguar presence often correlates with healthier forest structure, not because they plant trees, but because their prey do less damage when predators loom. They are what biologists call a keystone species, small in number but enormous in impact. Each jaguar's coat is unique, a fingerprint of rosettes and spots, evolved not for beauty but for deception. To a trained eye, those markings are more than camouflage, they're maps. They reflect jaguar territory, behaviour, even personality. Black jaguars, known as melanistic jaguars or Pantheras negras, are rarer still. Their spots are still present, hidden beneath dark fur. Indigenous communities call them ghost cats, creatures of omen and awe. Long before camera traps, satellite telemetry, or ecological surveys, Amazonian tribes knew the jaguar intimately. To the Jaguar people of Peru, the jaguar is a forest god, a being that walks between the human world and the realm of spirits. To the Kayapo of Brazil, warriors painted their faces with jaguar spots before battle, believing it granted stealth, strength, and courage. And to the ancient pre-Columbian civilizations now being rediscovered beneath the canopy, jaguar iconography was everywhere. Carved into ceremonial platforms, painted on pottery, and woven into mythology. These civilizations didn't just fear the jaguar, they revered it. Despite its dominance, the jaguar is notoriously hard to study. Dense forest, nocturnal habits, and massive home ranges, over 50 square miles for a single male, make sightings incredibly rare. Researchers rely on camera traps and GPS collars to track movements, which often reveal shocking patterns, like 10-mile overnight swims or multi-day stalking behaviour across flooded islands. But while science struggles to see the jaguar, the threats to its survival are crystal clear. Habitat loss, fragmentation, and illegal hunting have reduced jaguar populations by nearly 50% over the past century. Even in protected reserves, jaguars are shot for preying on cattle, or trafficked for their teeth and paws, sold as trophies or traditional medicine. In 2020, scientists discovered that just 13% of the jaguar's original range remains intact. That means these apex predators are being forced into smaller, more isolated territories, a recipe for genetic collapse. But there is hope. In 2018, conservationists from Panthera and the Wildlife Conservation Society launched the Jaguar Corridor Initiative, a plan to connect jaguar habitats from northern Mexico to Argentina using protected biological corridors. In the Amazon, this means preserving the vast stretches of uninterrupted forest jaguars need to roam, and empowering indigenous communities as stewards of that land. Studies show that jaguar densities are highest not in national parks, but in territories managed by indigenous peoples, where traditional knowledge and cultural respect protect the animal better than enforcement ever could. The disappearance of the jaguar wouldn't just be the loss of a species, it would be the unravelling of a system, like removing a load-bearing beam from a cathedral. Everything else starts to collapse. The jaguar is more than the Amazon's top predator, it is its metaphor. A creature so powerful it defines its ecosystem, and so elusive it almost vanishes from it. But if the jaguar is the forest's silent ruler, then there is one force even more elusive. Not an animal, not a ruin, but a moment. A breath the forest takes once each year, when everything changes. Next, we descend into the flooded forest, a place that becomes an ocean, where fish swim among trees and land is no longer land. In the heart of the Amazon basin, the forest disappears, not from fire or deforestation, but from water. Once a year, up to 250,000 square kilometres of rainforest, an area 3 times the size of Austria, is swallowed by its own rivers. This is the flood pulse, nature's most epic seasonal event. For most of the year, these forests are dense, humid, and vibrant. But when the rains come, and they always do, for over 200 days annually, the rivers rise, slowly at first, then inexorably, until they spill their banks and submerge the surrounding forest. This creates the Várzea and Igapo, seasonally flooded forests where treetops become canopies for fish, and the forest floor becomes an aquatic highway. But this is not destruction, it's transformation. Peak flood, water levels can rise over 30 feet, pushing far beyond the usual riverbanks. Entire forests vanish underwater. Trees that once housed monkeys and toucans now cradle fish and freshwater stingrays. And this is where the Amazon performs one of its greatest illusions. It becomes an ocean in the middle of the jungle. Schools of fish move through submerged tree trunks. Floating leaves serve as nurseries for amphibians. And some of the forest's rarest species suddenly become accessible. If only for a moment. One of the stars of this flooded world is the tambaqui, Colossoma macropomum, a freshwater fish that can grow up to 3 feet long and weigh over 70 pounds. It's a specialist in hard-shelled fruits, using its powerful jaws to crush seeds that fall from the forest canopy. But tambaqui don't just eat fruit, they plant it. Many Amazonian trees, like the rubber tree and the camu-camu, have evolved to drop fruit directly into the floodwater. These fruits float or sink, where they're either eaten or carried away by species like the tambaqui. Some seeds pass through the fish, undigested, germinating miles away, an underwater version of seed dispersal by birds. In this way, the fish shapes the very forest it swims through. But the tambaqui isn't alone. In this drowned jungle, evolution has produced some of the Amazon's strangest creatures. Take the splashing carakin, Copella arnoldi, a small fish that quite literally leaps out of the water to lay its eggs on overhanging leaves. After mating, the male stays below, flicking water up onto the eggs to keep them moist until they hatch and drop back into the water. No other fish in the world does this. Or consider the Amazon tree frog, which takes advantage of the flooding to lay eggs high up in tree holes. Their tadpoles develop in miniature reservoirs, safe from aquatic predators that now swarm the forest floor. The flooded forest even changes the behaviour of insects. Dragonflies hover inches above submerged bark, laying eggs on floating vegetation. Beetles evolve gills. Mosquito larvae proliferate in still pockets of water, feeding a chain of predators that include fish, frogs, and bats. And then there are the amphibious snakes, like the green anaconda, which navigates the submerged world in stealth. Though already discussed earlier, other lesser-known aquatic serpents take centre stage here. The Mussurana, a rare ophiophagus snake, thrives in this habitat, preying on other serpents that get disoriented by the changing waterlines. Not every tree can survive this transformation. Some trees literally drown, but others have evolved to not only withstand months of submersion, but to thrive in it. The Macaca tree has bark that resists fungal decay underwater. Its roots contain specialised pores that extract oxygen even when submerged. Many tree species release seeds only during flood season, allowing them to disperse far and wide by water. Others develop buttress roots to anchor themselves against strong currents or bark textures that resist predatory fish. The floodwaters also deliver nutrient-rich silt to the roots of these trees, acting like a natural fertilizer. Paradoxically, the annual floods that seem to destroy the forest are exactly what make it grow back stronger. This flood cycle is not a catastrophe, it's a pulse, a heartbeat. Researchers call it the flood pulse concept, a term coined to describe how the Amazon's biodiversity is linked directly to the rhythm of rising and falling water. Fish time their migrations to the pulse. Birds time their nesting. Plants time their flowering. It's a system of ecological synchrony, unmatched anywhere on Earth. But this balance is fragile. In recent decades, hydroelectric dams have interrupted flood patterns in some regions. Climate change is shifting rainfall intensity and timing. A drier Andes means lower river flows and more erratic flood pulses. Scientists worry that the delicate choreography that defines the flooded forest is being thrown out of rhythm. And that rhythm matters. More than 70% of fish in the Amazon depend on flood season for feeding, spawning, or dispersal. Some species only breed when water reaches specific heights. If that fails to happen, entire populations can crash. The flooded forest is not a place. It's a season, an alternate reality that exists for a few months each year. Then it vanishes. As the waters recede, fish retreat to permanent rivers and lakes. Amphibians burrow into mud. The forest floor, now thick with nutrient-rich silt and fallen seeds, erupts into a second growing season. Birds that once hunted fish now turn to insects. Mammals reclaim their territory. Life rebalances. But even after the waters are gone, the memory remains. You can still see water lines on the trunks of trees, ghostly stains, 5 or 6 feet above the ground, marking where the river once stood. For a few months each year, the Amazon becomes something else. Not a jungle, not a river. Something in between. Something almost alien. And then just like that, it's gone. When the last shafts of daylight vanish from the canopy and the rainforest plunges into darkness, a transformation begins. Not of movement, but of light. It begins faintly, a subtle shimmer across the bark of a fallen log, a soft pulse on a branch overhead. Then, scattered through the damp night, strange and luminous life begins to flicker. This is not a metaphor. Parts of the Amazon rainforest literally glow in the dark. Scattered across the Amazon floor are species of bioluminescent fungi, microbial architects of decay that emit a ghostly green or blue light as they decompose wood, bark and leaves. Known collectively as foxfire or fairy fire, this natural phenomenon has been observed in tropical forests around the world, but few places harbour the diversity or intensity found in the Amazon. In Brazil, researchers have identified at least 17 species of glow-in-the-dark fungi, with new ones being discovered every few years. Most are small, no more than a few inches tall, and are found on rotting logs or damp forest litter. Their light comes from a chemical reaction. Luciferin, the same compound that gives fireflies their glow, oxidizes in the presence of luciferase enzymes, producing a cold, continuous luminescence. Why these fungi glow is still debated. Some scientists believe the glow attracts insects, which then helps spread the fungi's spores. Others argue it may be a byproduct of antioxidant defences, as the fungus digests toxic wood compounds. But no matter the function, the effect is undeniable. A rainforest floor that, in the right conditions, pulses with an eerie green light. In 2022, researchers from the Universidade Federal de São Carlos discovered that the intensity of the glow can vary based on humidity, temperature, and even competition, suggesting that these fungi are not passive decomposers, but responsive and adaptive organisms. Bioluminescence in the Amazon isn't limited to fungi. There are insects, click beetles in particular, that emit sharp points of green light from their thoraxes. Known locally as fire beetles, they flash as they crawl along tree trunks or fly low through the undergrowth. The light serves multiple purposes: to warn predators, to signal to mates, and possibly to illuminate prey. Certain species of larvae, especially in the families of fungus gnats, create what are known as hanging lanterns, fine threads of silk laced with bioluminescent mucus, dangled from leaves to lure in small insects. These glowing traps are so faint they can only be seen in total darkness, but to a wandering ant or moth, they're a death sentence cloaked in light. In waterlogged areas, aquatic beetles and fly larvae produce glowing trails across the surface tension of puddles or shallow streams, creating what some researchers describe as river fireflies, a name that belies their predatory intent. Even the mushroom mycelium, the underground root-like networks of fungi, may glow, lighting up logs from within, like embers that never quite go out. For indigenous peoples of the Amazon, this glowing life has long been a source of spiritual reverence and caution. In Ticuna mythology, bioluminescent mushrooms are known as the eyes of the ancestors, guiding the spirits through the dark underworld of the forest. Some tribes believe that those who disturb glowing fungi may invite illness or misfortune. Others collect them for ceremonial purposes, believing the mushrooms have healing powers or prophetic energy. There are also darker tales. In some Yanomami traditions, glowing logs are said to be guardians of the dead, left behind to watch over abandoned tribal grounds. To step too close is to risk awakening the spirits that dwell within. And yet, despite these warnings, bioluminescence often plays a practical role too. Some communities use the fungi to mark trails, illuminate huts, or even light up hunting tools, nature's version of a torch in a world where artificial light is rare. Recent studies suggest that bioluminescence may play a much broader ecological role in the rainforest than previously imagined. Insects drawn to glowing fungi disperse not only spores, but other microbes that influence forest decay rates. Small predators that hunt by glow, like nocturnal spiders or frogs, may have evolved to see specific wavelengths of green and blue light. In some areas, glowing fungi are more abundant during certain times of the year, coinciding with peak decomposition after floodwaters recede. This indicates a seasonal light cycle within the forest, akin to blooming or fruiting, except it's invisible to the daytime world. There's even a theory that glowing mushrooms may help moderate the Amazon's carbon cycle. By accelerating decomposition in moist conditions, they release carbon faster, making them part of the rainforest's vast system of carbon exchange and sequestration. Documenting these luminous life forms is notoriously difficult. Bioluminescence is often faint and scattered. It doesn't show up well under traditional camera equipment. It requires full darkness, stable temperatures, and often luck. Researchers have had to develop custom sensors and low-light optical tools to capture just a glimpse of the Amazon's nighttime glow. But breakthroughs are coming fast. In 2023, a Brazilian-Canadian team used drone-based infrared imaging to create the first full bioluminescent ecosystem map of a rainforest sector near Tefe, Brazil, revealing hotspots of activity where fungal and insect light concentrated most. This kind of mapping could open new pathways for studying forest health, fungal diversity, and even the impact of climate change on microbial light production. It also revealed something unexpected. Many glowing zones were located near ancient earthen mounds, suggesting possible linkages between ancient human habitation and modern fungal biodiversity. But like so many wonders of the Amazon, this glowing world is under threat. Deforestation doesn't just remove trees, it erases entire microhabitats. Bioluminescent fungi are incredibly sensitive to light pollution, moisture change, and soil compaction. A single logging road can extinguish dozens of colonies. The more artificial light intrudes into the forest, the more this ancient nocturnal theatre begins to fade. To lose the Amazon's bioluminescence is not just to lose a scientific curiosity, it's to lose one of the last wild displays of life that shines from within. In the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, just northwest of Manaus, the forest does something extraordinary. It splits, multiplies, and rearranges itself, transforming into a vast, ever-changing web of water and islands. This is Anavilhanas, the largest freshwater archipelago on the planet. More than 400 islands, scattered like green raindrops across the Rio Negro, stretch for nearly 60 miles, a maze of flooded forest, shifting currents, and astonishing biodiversity. At first glance, Anavilhanas appears to be a dreamlike tangle of land and water. But beneath the surface, it's a living system of immense complexity, one that rewrites the boundaries between river and rainforest. Unlike a typical island chain formed by volcanic eruptions or tectonic uplift, Anavilhanas is shaped entirely by hydrology. The Rio Negro, the largest blackwater river in the world, pours through this region with seasonal extremes. During the rainy season, the river can rise over 30 feet, flooding enormous swathes of forest and connecting channels that were dry just months earlier. During the dry season, those same channels shrink, strand or reveal islands once submerged. It's not erosion that creates Anavilhanas, it's sediment deposition, the delicate art of river sculpting. Over centuries, the Rio Negro has dropped fine black silt, building up sandbars and islands in fractal patterns. And because the water chemistry is low in nutrients and dark in colour, algae and weed growth remain low, allowing trees to colonise every bit of emerging land. Each island is temporary, in a geological sense. Some will erode, split or vanish. Others will grow. The river writes, erases and rewrites the map, year after year. This instability is what gives Anavilhanas its biological power. The flooded forests, known as Igapo, are among the most species-rich ecosystems in the Amazon, and the islands themselves form a patchwork of microhabitats where evolution plays out in miniature. On the island edges, capuchin monkeys swing through cambara trees, while kingfishers dive for armoured tetras. In the interior forest, bromeliads host poison dart frogs and arboreal ants that have adapted to the soft, damp soil. Because the islands are surrounded by nutrient-poor blackwater, their ecosystems are less influenced by outside species. This isolation encourages endemism, species found nowhere else. Researchers have identified more than 400 bird species, 1,000 plant species, and dozens of rare amphibians within Anavilhanas National Park alone. In 2020, a new species of microlizard was discovered on a single island, less than 2 square acres in size. Beneath the waters, the biodiversity is no less staggering. Electric eels patrol submerged routes, red-tailed catfish rest beneath fallen trunks, and pink river dolphins, botos, use echolocation to navigate the complex web of flooded trees and narrow channels. These dolphins are particularly drawn to Anavilhanas for one critical reason. The complexity of the channels amplifies their sonar, creating acoustic reflections that help them detect prey in murky waters. In effect, the labyrinth is an amplifier for predators and for those who can hear through darkness. For local Ribeirinho communities, descendants of Indigenous Amazonians and Portuguese colonists, Anavilhanas is more than a natural wonder. It's a living archive. These families move through the waterways seasonally, adjusting their homes, fishing routes, and travel according to the river's moods. The changing geography is so familiar that many locals can navigate the maze without maps, using memory, family knowledge, and observation of the water's rhythm. One fisherman described the archipelago as a forest that never stands still. His family knows which island will vanish next year and which one might rise. They know the best flood season to find pirarucu, the Amazon's giant fish, and the narrow back channels where tambaqui gather during spawning. Even the sandbanks serve ritual and practical purposes. In dry seasons, river communities use them to dry cassava, smoke fish, and hold gatherings, only to see those same spaces vanish with the next rain. This relationship between people and place, dynamic, observational, ancestral, is vanishing fast in the modern world. But in Anavilhanas, it's still alive. Studying Anavilhanas is a challenge even for seasoned scientists. Traditional satellite mapping struggles to keep up with the landscape's constant change. But in recent years, new technologies like drone photogrammetry, LiDAR, and spectral water sensing have revealed something remarkable. The hydrological shifts within Anavilhanas don't just change islands, they alter species migration, pollination timing, and even microclimates. In 2019, a study published in Nature Communications found that insect populations in the archipelago's central islands exhibited asynchronous breeding cycles, timed not by the sun, but by the flood pulse of the river. This means that certain butterflies and bees may hatch or migrate weeks apart, depending on island height and proximity to water. In other words, even within a single ecosystem, time itself becomes relative. In 1981, Brazil declared Anavilhanas a national park, now part of the Central Amazon Conservation Complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's one of the most protected freshwater areas on Earth, and yet the park remains fragile. Rising temperatures and changing rain patterns, driven by climate change, are beginning to destabilise the flood pulse, the very mechanism that gives Anavilhanas life. Extreme floods have increased, dry seasons are longer, and upstream deforestation affects the sediment load that forms the islands themselves. What happens if the river stops shifting? What if the balance between land and water, chaos and creation begins to tip? To witness Anavilhanas is to understand impermanence not as loss, but as process. In a world where we often seek permanence, cities, roads, maps, the Amazon offers something radical, a reminder that the most complex systems don't stand still. They adapt, they cycle, they change form without losing function. Anavilhanas is not a place of ruin or rise. It is both every year. It is the rainforest unbound, dissolving into river, reassembling into land, then drifting again, an eternal equation of growth and erosion. Deep within the Peruvian Amazon, hundreds of miles from the nearest volcanic activity, something impossible flows. A river, wide enough to drown in, long enough to be mapped, runs hot enough to kill. Its waters steam like a cauldron, scalding at up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, 93 degrees Celsius. And for centuries, Indigenous lore described it only in myth, a whispered tale of spirits, punishment and fire flowing through the forest. But the river is real. It's called Shanai Timpishka, boiled with the heat of the sun, in the language of the Ashaninka people. This is the boiling river of the Amazon, one of Earth's most mysterious geothermal phenomena, and one of the rainforest's least understood natural wonders. In 2011, geoscientist Andres Russo made headlines when he confirmed what many had dismissed as legend. The boiling river existed, and it wasn't a hot spring or a volcanic runoff. It was a fully flowing river, 6.2 kilometers long, winding through the jungle, heating not in spurts but continuously. And that was the puzzle. How could a river get this hot without any nearby volcanoes? The closest geothermal system capable of this kind of heating, volcanically, lies hundreds of miles away, and yet the river stays hot year-round. The answer, it turns out, lies deep underground. What heats Shanai Timpishka is a rare form of geothermal energy, where rainwater seeps deep into the Earth's crust, possibly over 2 miles down, and comes into contact with unusually hot rocks heated by the tectonic compression of the Andes Mountains. That water, now superheated and pressurized, returns to the surface through fault lines, erupting into the riverbed and sustaining temperatures high enough to boil small animals alive. There is no magma here, just heat. And it's enough to challenge the way we think about energy, geology, and ecosystems. Walking near the boiling river is an exercise in tension. From a distance, it looks serene. Mist rising through thick foliage, glassy water winding through lush forest. But get too close and danger sets in. The river can instantly scald skin, and in certain spots the water churns into near boil. Small animals that fall in don't drown. They cook from the inside out, as the heat denatures proteins and liquefies tissue. Russo recalls seeing a frog fall in. It swam desperately, then seized up, unable to escape the invisible trap of heat. It was dead in seconds. In parts of the river, the temperature drops to about 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius, and a few species of fish have adapted to these border zones. But further in, nothing survives. Even microbes, the extremophiles often found in hot springs, are limited here. The temperatures fluctuate too dramatically, creating a kind of thermal limbo, where only the hardiest organisms persist. To the local Ashaninka people, the river has never been a mystery. It has always been sacred. According to legend, the boiling river was created by a giant serpent spirit, Yakumama, the mother of the waters, whose rage split the earth and unleashed boiling wrath across the land. For generations, shamans used the river in ritual, harvesting plants heated by the waters, speaking to ancestors through the rising steam. The land is considered a place of healing and danger, a duality that fits the river's impossible nature. And in some sense, their version of the story holds true. The Yakumama may not be a literal serpent, but the boiling river does snake through a fragile rift in the Earth's crust, releasing a hidden force beneath the jungle floor. Myth and science, it turns out, were never in opposition. They were looking at the same heat from different angles. From a scientific standpoint, the boiling river is what's known as a non-volcanic geothermal system. There are only a few confirmed examples on Earth. What makes Shanai Timpishka unique is that it's isolated. There are no companion geysers, no thermal fields, no major tectonic vents above it, just jungle, and a river that steams in defiance of its geography. This has led some researchers to question how many other geothermal systems might exist in remote parts of the rainforest, still undetected because of the impenetrability of the canopy. It also poses a question for renewable energy. If geothermal heat can reach the surface here, far from tectonic hotspots, how many other viable energy sources are hidden in tropical basins? In 2017, the Peruvian government considered the boiling river as a potential site for low-impact geothermal power. But the project stalled, partly due to conservation concerns, and partly because the science of its heat source is still incomplete. No one fully understands how stable the system is, how deep the water travels, or how long it has been operating. Today, Shanai Timpishka remains unprotected. Though it lies within the Mayantuyaku Reserve, owned and operated by indigenous communities and local healers, it has no formal national park status. That leaves it vulnerable to logging, mining, and external development. Already, deforestation has crept dangerously close to the thermal watershed. If upstream land is cleared, the river's delicate hydrological balance could collapse, and with it, one of Earth's rarest rivers could vanish, or cool, before it's fully understood. Russo and others have called for stronger protection measures. They argue that the boiling river isn't just a scientific oddity or a sacred site. It's a symbol of the Amazon's secrets, of how much we don't know, even in a region we claim to study. The boiling river doesn't just defy expectations, it reframes them. In a rainforest we often think of in terms of wildlife, canopy, or carbon. It reminds us that the Amazon is just as rich beneath the ground, in its geothermal systems, geological formations, and microbial frontiers. And it proves that in a world mapped by satellites and scanned by drones, there are still places that exist between belief and fact. witnessed for generations by those who live there, ignored by those who thought they couldn't. The Amazon still holds mysteries that challenge the limits of science and force us to listen to the stories told by the land itself. For centuries, we looked at maps of the world and saw the Amazon as a green void, a blank space, a place we claimed to know because we saw it from above, but never truly understood beneath. Today, that illusion is fading. What we've discovered, just in the last decade, has upended centuries of assumption. Lost cities, thermal rivers, undiscovered species, even human-made soils and agricultural systems more sophisticated than once thought possible. These are not just anomalies, they are signs. Signs that the Amazon is not a wilderness we stumbled upon, but a landscape shaped by civilizations, by adaptation, by ingenuity, and by forces we're only beginning to grasp. For decades, textbooks taught us that the Amazon was too poor in nutrients to ever sustain a large population, that its soil was infertile, that its people were scattered hunter-gatherers, isolated and simple. But recent archaeology, revealed by LiDAR and boots-on-the-ground fieldwork, has shattered that myth. We now know that millions of people once thrived here in vast urbanised networks, without stone, without wheels, without roads as we know them. They built with the forest, not against it. They enriched the soil, managed water systems, and carved civilizations from the jungle, with a logic still unfamiliar to us. And when disease and conquest collapsed those worlds, the forest reclaimed what they had built, not erasing history, but concealing it. The Amazon rainforest is not untouched. It is a palimpsest, a living text overwritten by centuries of regrowth, waiting to be read again. The forest remains the single most biodiverse region on Earth. It holds more than 390 billion individual trees, more than 16,000 tree species, at least 10% of all known species, and likely thousands more that haven't been discovered. Some scientists estimate we're still finding one new species every 2 days. Tiny frogs that glow, birds with songs that don't match any known species, fungi that digest plastic, plants that may one day cure diseases we haven't even named yet. But we're in a race. Deforestation and climate disruption are erasing parts of the Amazon faster than we can explore them. Species are likely going extinct before they are even catalogued, and civilizations that once thrived here are being forgotten, again. If the rainforest vanishes, it won't just be a loss of trees. It will be the loss of answers to questions we haven't thought to ask yet. The Amazon doesn't just exist in isolation, it breathes for the planet. It generates 20% of the world's oxygen, stores billions of tons of carbon, evaporates enough water into the atmosphere to shape rainfall patterns across South America, and even the western United States and Africa. It's a massive climate engine, and if it falters, the effects ripple far beyond its borders. Already we're seeing signs of stress. Dieback, fires, shifting rainfall. A tipping point looms. If deforestation passes a certain threshold, some estimate 20 to 25%, parts of the Amazon could transform into savanna, permanently altering the global climate. Protecting the forest isn't just about biodiversity, it's about planetary equilibrium. It's about our future. What makes the Amazon unique isn't just what we see, it's what remains unknown. It is the largest unexplored landmass remaining on Earth, a region that likely holds hundreds more archaeological sites, undiscovered rivers, species unknown to science, and ecosystems that challenge our assumptions. And unlike deserts or glaciers, the rainforest conceals. Its canopy hides the ground. Its density blocks satellites. Its rains swallow footprints in days. That makes it more than a wilderness. It makes it an archive, sealed, waiting to be opened. What if we're only at the beginning of what the Amazon can teach us? In a world where nearly everything has been mapped, geotagged and uploaded, the Amazon remains a place where mystery survives. Where rivers boil, cities hide beneath trees, tribes remain uncontacted, creatures evolve with traits we don't understand. Where legends like the lost city of Z once sounded fanciful, until they were proven true. So the final question isn't what is the Amazon? It's what else are we missing? Because beneath those emerald leaves and endless rivers, there are still truths waiting to be found. If you want to experience more of the Earth's wildest stories, most remote ecosystems, and jaw-dropping natural marvels, subscribe to explore the planet's final frontiers in cinematic 4K.